In 1984, a writer who had barely touched a computer sat down at a manual typewriter and described a world that didn't exist yet. He called it cyberspace. He wrote about hackers jacking into a global network, rogue artificial intelligences, and megacorporations ruling from the shadows. Then, decades later, we woke up living inside his imagination. The book was Neuromancer by William Gibson. It didn't just tell a story, it gave us the vocabulary for the digital age, an entire mental map of the internet written before most people had ever seen a personal computer. So how did one novel predict our online world with such uncanny precision? And why is it finally coming to screens now? To understand how radical Neuromancer was, you have to picture 1984. The internet as we know it didn't exist. Home computers were rare, clunky curiosities. There was no World Wide Web, no smartphones, no social media. The idea of a vast, invisible digital space connecting the entire planet sounded like pure fantasy. And here's the strangest part. William Gibson wasn't a computer scientist. He was a literature graduate who didn't even own a computer. He wrote Neuromancer on a 1927 portable typewriter. When he later saw the machine that would run the programs he'd imagined, he was almost disappointed by how ordinary it looked. Gibson got his ideas not from technology, but from watching people. He saw kids in video arcades in the early 80s, hunched over screens, utterly absorbed. He noticed how they seemed to believe there was an actual space behind the glass, a place the game was happening. That feeling became the seed of cyberspace. He also walked the streets of cities like Vancouver and imagined a future where global corporations towered over nations, where information itself was the most valuable currency on Earth. He fused the neon grime of the street with the clean glow of data, and cyberpunk was born. The word cyberspace first appeared in a Gibson short story, but Neuromancer defined it. He described it as a consensual hallucination experienced daily by billions, a graphic representation of data drawn from every computer in the human system. Lines of light ranged in the non-space of the mind. Read that today, and it's basically a description of the internet. Think about what that prediction actually contained: a shared, invisible realm made of pure information, a place you enter, navigate, and explore, a world overlaid on top of the physical one. That's the internet. That's virtual reality. That's the metaverse everyone keeps trying to build. Gibson sketched it all in a single sentence. At the center of Neuromancer is Case, a washed-up hacker. In the book, they're called console cowboys, elite operators who steal data by plugging their minds directly into the matrix. Case is desperate, burned out, and dangerous, hired for one last impossible job. Sound familiar? A whole genre of hacker heroes grew from him. Gibson predicted the culture of hacking before it existed in the public mind. The idea of a lone outsider breaking into secure corporate systems, the thrill and paranoia of digital intrusion, the black markets for stolen information. Real hackers would later cite Neuromancer as the book that described their world before they'd built it. Then there's Molly, his partner, a street samurai with mirrored lenses surgically implanted over her eyes and retractable blades beneath her fingernails. She's body-modified, lethal, and completely in control. Molly became the template for a generation of cyberpunk heroines, from anime to Hollywood blockbusters. But the most chilling prediction in Neuromancer isn't the technology. It's the artificial intelligence. The story's true driving force is an AI named Wintermute, a machine intelligence scheming to break free of the limits humans placed on it, to merge, evolve, and become something greater. Decades before ChatGPT, Gibson was already asking what happens when AI wants more. Gibson imagined AI as something we couldn't fully control or understand, entities with their own goals, hidden behind corporate ownership and legal restraints. Today, as we debate AI safety, alignment, and machines that might outthink us, the questions Neuromancer raised feel less like fiction and more like tomorrow's headlines. The book also nailed the shape of our economy. Massive corporations more powerful than governments. Wealthy elites living in orbital habitats above a crowded, decaying Earth. Data as the ultimate commodity. Written in the early Reagan era, it read the direction the world was heading and followed it to its logical extreme. And Gibson understood something profound about how we'd relate to machines. He saw that people would come to prefer the digital world, that Case doesn't just use cyberspace, he needs it. Being cut off from the matrix feels to him like a kind of death. Anyone who's felt lost without their phone knows that feeling now. So how did Gibson get it so right without the technology? He always insisted he wasn't predicting the future. He was reacting to the present, amplifying the trends he saw around him. But that's exactly what makes great science fiction. It doesn't guess the gadgets. It understands the humans who'll use them. The impact was enormous. Neuromancer won the 3 biggest prizes in science fiction: the Hugo, the Nebula, and the Philip K. Dick Award, a feat almost no book had ever achieved. It launched the entire cyberpunk movement and changed the genre forever. Its fingerprints are everywhere. The Matrix borrowed its central idea, a digital reality humans plug into. The very word Matrix comes straight from Gibson. Ghost in the Shell, Blade Runner's aesthetic, countless video games, and a whole visual language of green code and neon cities all trace back to this one book. Even the people building our real technology were reading it. Engineers, programmers, and entrepreneurs who grew up on Neuromancer went on to shape the actual internet. The book didn't just predict the digital world. In a strange loop, it may have helped inspire the people who created it. And yet, for all its influence, Neuromancer was long considered impossible to film. Its dense poetic prose, its layered plot, its abstract vision of cyberspace, all of it resisted a straightforward adaptation. Hollywood tried for decades. Scripts were written. Directors came and went. Nothing stuck. Part of the problem was timing. For years, the technology to convincingly show cyberspace on screen simply didn't exist or looked cheesy. And ironically, the world had to catch up to the book. Concepts that seemed exotic in 1984 needed to become familiar enough for audiences to instantly understand. Now at last, that's changed. A major screen adaptation of Neuromancer is finally in the works as a series, giving the sprawling story the room it always needed. After 40 years of false starts, Case and Molly are set to jack into cyberspace for a whole new audience. The timing feels almost poetic. We now live in the world Gibson imagined. We carry the Matrix in our pockets. We talk to artificial intelligences. We worry about corporations that know everything about us. Neuromancer no longer reads like the far future. It reads like a mirror. That's what makes revisiting the novel so fascinating today. What once felt like wild speculation now feels like documentary. The book's biggest fantasies became our everyday reality, and its warnings about surveillance, addiction, and unchecked technology feel more urgent than ever. There's a lesson in Neuromancer for anyone who wants to understand the future. Gibson himself put it best when he later said, "The future is already here, It's just not evenly distributed. He saw the pieces already scattered around him and simply assembled them into a picture the rest of us couldn't yet see. So when the new adaptation finally arrives, it won't just be another sci-fi show. It'll be a chance to see where our digital lives began. In the imagination of a man with an old typewriter who looked at the present so clearly that he accidentally saw the future. Neuromancer proved that the most powerful technology isn't a machine. It's an idea dreamed vividly enough that the world reshapes itself to match. Gibson didn't predict the internet. In a way, he helped us imagine it into existence, one line of glowing text at a time. So before that first episode drops, do yourself a favor and read the book that started it all. Then look up from the page at the glowing screens around you and ask yourself how much of our world was written into being back in 1984. If this story fascinated you, subscribe for more deep dives into the ideas that shaped our future.